overlay on top of what FEMA requires? That's our overlay, correct?
So to speak, yes, sir.
Yes, right.
Yes, it's a requirement of our plating ordinance.
So I guess how is this different from the property that about a year ago was developing in the floodway, in the floodplain, about, I don't know, spring of 2021? We approved that. How's that different from this one?
I would need to look
Is
into.
an RV resort?
I would need to look into that one to learn more about it and what was required there. But
we didn't require it for that one.
If someone plats property and a portion of it's in the floodway, the platting ordinance requires that the floodway be dedicated on the plat as a non-buildable drainage easement.
But the one that we approved last spring, we allowed that, correct? We allowed the building in the floodway, in the floodplain, correct? RVs there, is that right?
I'm sorry, sir, I would need to research which one that is to see. So, oh.
I'll be able to address that one. They're actually doing a map revision to remove a portion of the floodplain and floodway to just that line. So again, that is what they're doing for that specific property. And then when they had the plat, that plat would require the floodway to be in a drainage easement.
Okay.
But they are doing a map revision for that specific property.
So you guys are going back on to that property then?
Yeah, so
Okay.
exactly what they're doing is revising, making grading changes to the actual floodplain, floodway line and making a map revision that's filed with FEMA. So that's all under review right now.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Ford, could I ask you a question?
Yes.
Just want to clarify some comments that other people had made, make sure that accuracy, they weren't staff, but just folks in the audience that in good faith, I'm sure, or from their perspective. But let's assume that this, for the sake of just understanding the process, if this SUP is approved and they choose to build in the floodway, if I understand correctly, it's not a bureaucratic process with council. That'll go to staff from engineering. You guys look at metrics and numbers and things of that nature. And if you all have concern, then you send it to FEMA. Can you walk us through the process, assuming anything, not just this project, but a project that's in a floodway at some point in time, if it goes for building permits and this, if you would be so kind, the audience and us, through the checks and balances process, including and/or FEMA?
Right, so they would have to submit a no rise, no impact study regarding any specific permit. So again, that would be part of their floodplain permit. The city staff will review that and have that on file. So then if FEMA comes in and questions, they regularly come in and audit us on any improvements in the floodplain and floodway, and we have to have that with the associated permit on file. That way we demonstrated they have that no rise, no impact study on file. So again, that's kind of the process, but then right now it's, the FEMA gives our floodplain administrator that authority on that part.
Okay, so in theory, just for the sake of process here to understand this, if this was approved, it may not, but let's just say it's approved, and they file building permits with engineering studies and things like that, it could go nowhere if FEMA doesn't approve it. Or let me rephrase it, if our staff has concerns that rise level, then resend it to FEMA for approval, is that correct, or am I missing something here?
Well, typically FEMA is involved when you do a map revision. So if you're changing, again, the boundaries of the floodplain and floodway, then that's when it goes back to FEMA, when you change those actual lines on that map.
So if I understand correctly,
if you're not changing the lines on the map, then again, that is a no rise, no study that's managed to the city and filed with their city floodplain administrator. And again, if something comes up and we do an audit or FEMA comes back asking questions on this specific property, we have to prove that up and have that study ready for FEMA to review.
Okay. I think I apologize, a little slow, it's getting late, so bear with me. Let me put it this way and you tell me if I'm incorrect. A professional engineer reviews this, they have to show there's no mitigating factors, flood rise or whatnot. Our staff reviews that from an engineering perspective. If in fact it has no impact, then we file it away as approved, the engineer signed off on it, fine. Is that what I understand? And that meets FEMA's qualifications, requirements, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, so in theory, we're meeting FEMA's standard as long as it doesn't have those mitigating factors, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, I just want to better understand this, because I know the last time this came up, I had encouraged the applicant to do a type 2, and also there was, as I understood, over 20% opposition. And tonight, if I understand correctly, it appears the applicants work with the neighbors and the opposition is less than 20%, and it appears one of the biggest concerns, I understand there are folks who don't want anything there, I get it. But the point is if I want to understand the concern about safety, which I hear, and if I understand you correctly, you're telling me that the federal government, who's pretty strong, has stringent standards on this, there is a process that they can go through. They may not be able to meet it process, but in theory, if they could meet it with zero mitigating factors on the water flows and things of this nature.
Right, and they come in with the study that takes a number of factors. It goes to a detailed review, so y'all are aware of the reviews we do for the floodplain. I mean, that's serious. So again, when we take a lot of time to review it, again, we're diligent in our reviews.
So in essence, the city has a checks and balances process to protect public safety in this.
That's our responsibility, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Ford, Mr. Looney, or the property owner? Okay, what is the pleasure of council?
I'd like to make a motion to approve item 1 through 7 and replace item 8 with the 100-foot buffer on one side and the 100-foot buffer on the other side that proposed by the applicant.
Okay, now would it be 150 foot on one side?
Right, 150 foot on one side and 100 foot at the bottom, replacing item 8 on the application.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Willis.
Can I add to that? That access road needs to be part of that.
Okay, does the access road need to be part of that, Mr. Looney or whomever? If we talk about, that 150 foot on the right side and then that access which is in that easement, should that be part of this motion?
It can be, yes, sir. If city council would like to see it right at that location, then it certainly can be a condition.
Okay, all right. Do you make that as part of the motion? Are you recommending that?
Can you
as part of-
recommend that as part of your motion?
I recommend Councilman Spradley's addition to my motion.
Okay, so that would create that easement
Right.
on, next to that 150-foot easement on the right-hand side.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we have a motion that
I'll
will
second.
have a second from Councilmember Campos. Okay, Ms. Wilkinson, would you please call roll?
Councilmember Campos,
Aye.
Councilmember Willis,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Bowers,
Aye.
Councilmember Spradley,
Aye.
Councilmember Herda,
Aye.
Councilmember Blakey,
Aye.
Mayor Bachman.
Aye. Thank you. Motion carries. Agenda item 3,